Hello everybody, this is ManuS and welcome back to the last part of the MTG Arena set review for War of the Sparks. Took a while, but we're finally at the end. Time to talk about all the colorless cards, artifacts and lands, non-basic lands in the set to wrap things up. You know the drill. Before we get to the cards, hit the subscribe button, turn on the notification icon to not miss out on future content, especially deck techs and stuff. I'll try to get on that next. So let's get started. Okay, so first we have Karn the Great Creator. Here we have the alternate artwork. Looks pretty cool and not very anime-like like the others. So yeah, Karn, 4-mana Planeswalker, 5 loyalty. Activated abilities of artifacts your opponents control can't be activated. Sounds a lot like an Eternal card. This card might be interesting in some regard in Modern, and particularly interesting in Vintage. Maybe also in Legacy, but in particular in Vintage I can see this being relevant in some form, because it also affects mana ability, so in Vintage this seems really impactful. And yeah, the +1 ability is that it turns non-creature artifacts into artifacts. So it's not artifacts you control, so it also kills stuff like Moxen and so on. So this card seems kind of like a massive Vintage print. +1 kills 0-cost artifacts. The static ability suppresses all the like artifact utility while you kill them basically. And yeah, and then the -2 lets you choose an artifact card you own from outside the game or in exile and put it into your hand. So it also lets you tutor some stuff out of your sideboard, being basically like the wish for artifacts that we didn't have before. We have a wish for everything, even gold cards by now, but we didn't have one for artifacts, and now we have it in Planeswalker form. So yeah, this seems like a pretty impactful Vintage print. Outside of that, pretty trivial. Next we have Ugin the Ineffable. Here the alternate art. This is a pretty powerful Planeswalker. In Limited, Standard, and also probably in Modern. Colorless spells you cast cost 2 less to cast. Cost 6. Looks like it might be a decent option in Tron. For +1 you basically exile the top card of your library face down and create a 2/2 spirit creature token, and when that token leaves the battlefield you get to draw the card that you exiled. Basically you put it in your hand. And for -3 it destroys target permanent that's one or more colors. So yeah, basically a pretty solid removal with card advantage attached and some mana ramp, basically making it an interesting card in Tron. In Modern, and in Standard it's just a powerful 6-drop kind of win condition Planeswalker, and in Limited it's just a super powerful bomb that will usually win you the game. Next we have Yugen's Conjurant, X mana, 0/0, that comes into play with X +1/+1 counters on it, and if it takes damage, instead of taking damage, the damage is prevented and you remove an equal amount of counters from it, so it basically just keeps shrinking. But thanks to Proliferate, this is better than it would normally be and quite playable in Limited. Without all the Proliferate synergy and stuff, the card would be pretty underwhelming because of it just kind of dying by being chump blocked, even if it's big. Next we have Firemind Vessel, Limited only card. It's a 4-mana ramp artifact that ramps you from 4 to 7 basically, and fixes your colors, but it can only add 2 mana of different colors, so it cannot help fix double cost of color stuff. Like for example New Horizon can, which makes it a little worse, because with a couple of New Horizons you can for example splash a Sarkhan into your Simic Proliferate deck. Firemind Vessel doesn't do that. And jumping from 4 to 7 is also a bit high basically in Limited, since this format mostly caps at 6 even in the commons and stuff, so you almost never have anything in your deck that costs more than 6. I believe there might not even be a card in the set that costs more than 6 other than the finales being X cards, but I could be wrong. To be fair, so far in like quite a bunch of War of the Spark drafts that I didn't have anything in my deck that cost more than 6, except for maybe a finale, so it kind of ramps more than it needs to. Has some color fixing capabilities, and it comes into play tapped, so you can't use it right away, making it quite mediocre, but okay if you like want to go big and slow and have splashes and stuff, but it's kind of underwhelming. Next we have God Pharaoh's Statue. This card's pretty unplayable in limited. Spells your opponent cast cost 2 more to cast, but the thing itself costs 6, so by the time you play this, it doesn't do that much anymore. At the beginning of your end step, each opponent loses 1 life, which is super marginal. So yeah, in limited, this is very unplayable. Don't put it in your deck. In constructed, like in standard, this doesn't seem particularly needed. It seems like mostly a combo hoser. Sure, it seems like an okay card against Nexus as a combo deck, but it's pretty slow and expensive there, and they can just bounce it and then go off and stuff, so it's just not very impressive. There are better ways to fight that deck. And in older formats, it just seems like it's way too expensive. Maybe it's worthwhile as like a, I don't know, Tinker option in like Vintage as a Silver Bullet hate card or something, but I am not sure. I don't know enough about Vintage to know that, but that's something that I could imagine. Next we have Guild Globe. 2 mana artifact, draws a card when you play it, or when it hits the battlefield, and for 2 and sack you can add 2 mana of different colors, so it's a bit similar to Terrarion. It's 1 more expensive, but you draw the card right away, and it cannot fix double cost splashes, basically the same way as Vessel can't. But yeah, it replaces itself as color fixing, so it's a decent way to just fix splashes basically in limited, and that's all basically. Next we have Iron Bully, another limited only card. Basically Iron Bully, had to get the hair out of the face. Iron Bully is just like an okay 3-drop filler that basically gives you counters to use for proliferation mostly, because S3 costs 2 ManuS. It's pretty underwhelming. And even with Proliferate, this is not great, but if you have a lot of Proliferate this and need more things to use Proliferate on, this can make it in your deck occasionally, but it's not that great. But the fact that you can put the counter on something else can give you some critical sizing advantage at times, making it slightly better than it looks. Next we have Mana Geode, your typical limited 3 mana mana artifact. It adds 1 mana of any color, and when it enters the battlefield, you scry 1. So that makes it a bit better than the vanilla versions of these that we often have in core sets, but still not particularly great. But yeah, if you need color fixing and a bit of ramp, because the deck is top end heavy, this can be okay as a one-off, but not a big fan. Next we have Prismite, 2 mana 2/1, and for 2 mana you add 1 mana of any color, so you can basically mana wash by paying a mana to do so. So this can also help with some fixing of splashes, and just basically if you need a 2-drop, even a not very good one, because a 2 mana 2/1 is not a great 2-drop. But yeah, I can see this ending up in your deck in limited as a filler to fix your colors and stuff. So next we have Saheeli Silverwing, also kind of an underwhelming but serviceable artifact. It's a 4 mana 2/3 flyer that lets you look at the top card of your opponent's library as like a small bonus. But yeah, if your deck needs a 4-drop, needs some evasion, or needs something against opposing flyers, this can be okay, especially if you have ways to make it more impactful by putting counters on it and stuff. So it's not unplayable, but it's a marginal filler, basically. Then we have Blast Zone. This card is amazing and really, really great in Constructed. It enters the battlefield with a charge counter, produces colorless mana, and for twice X and tap, you can put X counters on it, and for 3 and tap, you can sack it to destroy each non-land permanent with converted mana cost equal to the number of counters. So this cannot kill things that cost 0, because it always comes into play with a counter unless you find a way to get rid of that counter. And yeah, other than that, it can do some serious damage just from a land, which is amazing. This has already found a home in Nexus as a way to kind of keep itself alive while setting up, and yeah, is just a really powerful, cool land for constructed, and also not terrible in limited by any means. Next we have Emergent Zone. Nothing impressive, but yeah, even in limited I don't think you usually want this. It's a colorless land that for 1 and sec lets you cast spells this turn as though they had flash, which is pretty bad, so yeah, this card's just irrelevant in my opinion. Then we have Gateway Plaza reprint. You go to color fixing in this format. It's kind of slow, but it does the job, so you might end up with multiples of these even sometimes if you're splashing. And it's fine if your deck isn't too fast and too interested in curving out. Next we have Interplanar Beacon. This is kind of a sweet land. Basically it fixes mana for Planeswalker heavy, color heavy decks, and in the process you gain 1 life every time you cast a Planeswalker. And yeah, it produces colorless mana, or you can tap it and pay 1 to produce 2 mana of different colors that can only be spent on Planeswalkers, which works particularly well on the gold Planeswalkers and hybrid Planeswalkers, because then you can just produce 1 mana of each color and play them. It doesn't help as much with playing double and triple cost Planeswalkers like Zarkan or Jace, for example, because it only can produce 1 red or 1 blue to pay for the Planeswalker. There might be some minor use for this in constructed in a very Planeswalker heavy deck. In limited, it can come in handy if you have a wide variety of Planeswalkers and play more than 2 colors. Next we have Khan's Bastion. Another colorless land here for 4 and tap we get to Proliferate, which is technically pretty powerful, but it's also pretty slow and very specific. But I could see this making it into some decks maybe as like a one-off or whatever, to abuse certain utility within the deck, but it's very marginal and the cost of having a colorless land is often fairly high. And last but not least we have Mobilized District. Another colorless land for 4. Mobilized District becomes a 3/3 citizen with vigilance until end of turn, and the ability costs 1 less to activate for each legendary creature and Planeswalker you control. So first of all, the fact that it has vigilance is really nice, because it can attack and then produce mana afterwards, or it can attack and then block on the opposing turn, which is quite a lot for a man land really. And yeah, if you support it with enough legendaries and Planeswalkers, it also actually gets pretty cheap and strong in the activation. So this seems like a nice and interesting card for standard, even though colorless lands are fairly costly potentially. But yeah, in the right deck this seems pretty cool. And in limited, I mean, if you're 2 colors, this seems fairly free to play and a pretty good payoff for doing so. So I would usually want to put that in my limited deck. Alright, this concludes the very last few cards of War of the Spark. I hope you guys enjoyed the series. As usual, leave some feedback in the comments, let me know what you think about the cards and the review. Other than that, I should probably try and find a way to get these out a bit more compact and faster in the future. This one was dragging out quite a bunch. Sorry about that. Real life gets in the way sometimes if you're not like full-time YouTubing and are able to just focus on it. So yeah, and otherwise, hit the like button if you enjoyed it. Leave a comment, share it with your friends, subscribe to the channel down below, turn on the notification icon to not miss out on future content. All of this helps the content be seen by others, and please consider whitelisting YouTube on your adblock. to help support us content creators. That would really mean a lot. Thanks for watching, everyone. I'm your host ManuS, and I see you next time. Bye.